Well, good morning from Azelda's Legacy. You can probably hear a lot of fluttering in the background. I am in what we call the warm room. I've still got some chickens in here, trying to grow them out into the great outdoors. That's always the plan. And by next year, we're hoping to have a different shed that we can have chickens in, actually have chicken house in half of it, and do all of our hatching and newly hatched chicken children out there. Right now these kids are doing pretty good, getting up on the higher shelf in here, but they will outgrow that rather quickly. Anyway, so next year we're hoping to not have them in here, so this can actually be storage for anything from paint to whatever other products that need to not get frozen, or things that just simply need to stay dry from the weather. But basically a climate-controlled storeroom. So I've been working overnight at the Sheriff's Department, and actually had the National Weather Service call and ask how we were doing down here, because the southern part of the state has had a lot of rain. The southwest corner has had a lot of rain. Right here we've had, I think we're standing at 5.5 inches. But here at Azelda's Legacy, we're kind of on a hill. The part where we live is kind of up on a hill, so not in bad shape here at the house, but just a few miles to the south of us is Grant City, and the nursing home down there was experiencing some flooding. I received a call in the night wondering if our county possibly had some sandbags and things that they could help with. So, goodness, do you not know I'm filming over here? Can you be polite, children? Apparently not. They really need to get outdoors. But they're a little small to put in with the next larger batch of chicks. So, there's that. Anyway, so they're having some struggles, not too many miles from us with flooding. So, it's a rainy day. Not going to be able to do much gardening. I'll show you some plants that I had setting out just simply to harden off yesterday, and you'll see why I'm not out gardening today. Actually, I could go show you other stuff too, but it would just be redundant. So, that little sweet potato start right there, I have emptied water out of that container twice already, and obviously from the pooling that's going on there, I'm going to be emptying water out of it again. So, I think that's a root that's sticking up just from water being poured. We didn't remember to get them in last night. I didn't remember to get them in before I went to bed for my evening sleep. Charlie told me the rain was coming, and I didn't remember to get them in, and then he was quite busy getting chickens and guineas closed up and various other things. You can see water on the ground underneath the pickup, and it's just a rainy day here. I actually may tuck in here a short that I did with the wind as it was just starting to rain. At any rate, so this stuff was all sitting outside just, to kind of harden off, as they say, and the bucket was full clear up to the tops of these pint jars. So, of course, these sweet potato starts were floating. These weren't hurt a bit. They were already sitting in water. The tomato had enough holes in the bottom of the cup that it drained right on through, but yet you can see that there was still some water held in it that's still working on draining itself out today. So, at any rate, I think they'll sit in here for today because it's still coming down just a little bit off and on. Now, on to the chickens. just to be able to keep chickens straight, make sure that you're looking at the chicken that you're intending to look at. A lot of people will use colored leg bands. Well, what I had been noticing here lately, as I was looking at videos where people were sorting out, which chicks that they hatched were little pullets and which chicks that they hatched were little cockerels, I was seeing people using zip ties. And I thought, well, that's fine, but they will outgrow them pretty quick. So every now and then a body's going to have to reband them. And this being a rainy day, that's exactly what I'm going to be working on. I have done a few of them, but I will be doing a few more of them. And I just thought I'd let y'all watch that process for a little bit. Might be interesting to somebody out there. So, here we go. So we're grabbing a few days of using the air conditioner in the camper for sleeping purposes. Just easier than setting one up in the house at the moment. So I am looking out the window and enjoying the beginnings of a pretty good thunderstorm, rainstorm. Just watching the trees swirling around with the wind. Just enjoying God's creation, and thought I would share it with you. That's really all I wanted to do, was just share the moment. God bless. So I already had done 4 of the chicks that we had raised, or that we had hatched out. And they don't really like being laid over on their back, but if they're handled enough that you can kind of work with them. I've got this pair of fingernail clippers, trying to get a good view of them. So they've got kind of a different shape to the end of them there, and I'm able to kind of get down in the loop of that without pinching their leg. If I had a pair of scissors that were heavy duty but yet kind of sharp pointed on the end to where I could slip in there. Some of these little bands have not gotten too tight, but some of them have gotten pretty snug on the little legs, and you don't want to be cutting off circulation. So, as I said, the zip ties are fairly inexpensive. It's just the time to sit and do it, but you'll want to get it tight enough that it's not going to come off of their foot. See, that could almost get caught and slip off of his foot, so I want it a little tighter. But yet I don't want it too tight, otherwise it would be pointless to have snipped that other one off. I want him to have a little bit of growing room. They are growing mighty fast. Now, that one on... Oops, easy. Yeah, gets tiring, doesn't it? Yeah, there we go. This would be one of Primo's chicks. Just off the top of my head, I'm not sure which hen it would be out of, but it's one of Primo's chicks. I've already done Black Betty, which is one out of our... Betty Boop, which is one out of our black astrolorp that is named Black Betty. Anyway, but I don't know exactly which hen some of these are out of without looking them up. And I did color code so that I could tell in the future. I don't think you're going to be able to see it on camera without me really wallering this chick around and making him uncomfortable, but there's almost a little mark on his leg there where this was getting tight. And be comparable to where my ring, yeah, we'll let you flip over, where a ring would lay on your finger. You can see that there's a little indentation on my finger. Well, my finger isn't going to continue growing, so that's not going to get too tight on my finger, but his little leg's going to keep on growing. So we want to be sure to give him some growing room. And these ones I'm doing first, they are, as I think I indicated, the ones that we hatched. So there he's got a little bit of room, but there's enough room there that could slip off of there, or he could get it caught and maybe injure himself. So I'm going to snug it up a little bit more. Almost like putting a bracelet on and making sure that it won't ride down over your thumb. Oop. Scared you, didn't I, little guy? Well, little gal, hopefully. I believe this one's a little gal. So there we go. I have some other styles of leg bands. At this point, this is what we're happiest with, and I'll show you those other styles of leg bands. I'll do another chick or two, and then I'll get out some of those other leg bands and show you the good points and the bad points with them. And each person is going to have to figure out what works best for them with their chickens, with their setup. But, until we know what the options are, sometimes it's like, oh, I don't know, what should I do? So I'm just showing you some options so that you have a better idea than I did when I started guesstimating what to do. So I already did, as I said, I'd already done about 4 chicks. The first ones I did were Blondie and Betty Boop. Silly names, yes, I know. Blondie is one of my Buckeye chicks. See how, I don't know if you can see. Let me see if I can pull that up here. Can you see how snug that is? It will turn on there, but it's gently rubbing its leg all the way around. And this one, yeah, this one over here is kind of the same way. And it's kind of hard to get it really in the camera, but those have not been on there terribly long, and yet they've gotten pretty snugged up. Anyway, I guess the thing I was going to show you also while I was moving it around. Can I get it in the right angle? There we go. You can see that little row of pieces that I've cut off. Now there's a red one in there. I don't know how well it's showing up, but I have Blondie is one of my Buckeyes, and so I banded her with 2 black ones. All of these chicks that we hatched, I banded black on the right leg, which would be the flock or the group that they're in, and then I banded different colors on the other leg to keep them straight. Well, where she is just that one Buckeye chick, I just went ahead and banded her black, and I banded Betty Boop black on both legs for each of them. And then I did a blue and a red and a white and so on throughout the other chicks. We had 7 chicks total that we were able to hatch out. Actually, we hatched 8, but one was just not a very strong chick and did not survive, just was not terribly strong from the first. At any rate, I'm just kind of keeping track of my little left foot leg bands until I get all of them done, so that I know I got everybody in that batch, because, you're taking them out and putting them back in. Now, the other way that a body could do this, and I'm just saying this to help somebody think it through if they're doing their rebanding for the first time. The other way a body could do it would be to have a separate kennel, separate cage, or coop, whatever, to put them in once the rebanding has taken place. At the moment, it just happens to be more convenient for me to put them right back in the same, in with the same little batch of chicks, and then nobody's fussing and fretting and trying to figure out where they are. So I'm just putting them right back in the same place, but in order to keep track, I'm just laying out, here's my left one that is my individual chick color. So I've got blondies and Betty Boops, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and there should be one more in there. I believe it'll be a green band. I'll have to look, but I think it'll be a green band. So that way you can just, it's just an easy way to keep track of them. So, and I want to be sure not to put my my right leg band over there, because that'll throw my count off, because all of my right legs are the same color for this particular grouping of chicks. So that may not be the way anybody else does it, but that's the way I've done it. It's kind of like when they used to earmark hogs. They would mark one ear that was the litter it came out of, and one ear that was the number in the litter. And it's an old style of doing things, but what they would do is they would cut a notch in the ear. Let's say that, and old farmers will know this, and this chick is just laying there so nice, I'm just going to go ahead and tell it. Let's say this, yeah, not so much. Okay, let's say this is the hog's ear. They would cut a notch or two over here. There was a certain pattern, and I don't know the pattern because I'm not that old, but they would cut certain notches over here and certain notches over here that would it kind of like the Roman numeral system. You would have certain notches over here that would tell you part of the number, and certain notches over here that would tell you the other part of the number. Well, they would do that, like I said, for which litter it came from, or which sow it came from, however that guy was keeping his records. And then they would go to the other ear, and they would mark it, I can't remember if, like, this would be which sow it was from, and this would be which litter it was from, or if this was which number in the litter it was. But at any rate, there was a pattern to it. And the big thing is, if you've got a pattern to the way that you're marking them, then you can just quickly and easily identify them, as long as you keep your pattern working the same. So I have tried to, I've got one set of chicks out there, they're full-grown hens, they're laying eggs. I've got one set of hens out there that I accidentally put my coop color all on, or my flock color, however you want to word that, all on the left leg. So they've got this green band on the left leg, and then their right leg is their individual color. So that kind of throws me off when I'm looking at them. I really need to catch each one of them and switch that around someday. But I just have not put them through getting caught and having that all done. And they were ones that were store-boughts, so they haven't been handled nearly as much as the ones that we raised ourselves. So, in general, I've stuck with right leg for coop or flock color. These were off in this coop by themselves. They were this little flock. And left leg for the individual color. And I think I've explained that to death. So, I'm going to pause and get the next chick. Well, two things. I was right. It was a green band that that was the last one. But also, this was the fussiest chick that I've had so far. He did not want to lay down on my lap. And when I took him out of the kennel, he was fussing and carrying on to a point that one of the other chicks, which happened to be a store-bought, but apparently they've buddied up, one of the other chicks was fussing and fretting and watching him to see what was going on and running right up there to the gate to check it out. Where are you going with my buddy? Oh, well, let me make a mess here with all of the... I'll drop all of the black zip ties all over the place. How about I lay one out there and figure out what to do with the rest of them after I'm not on video. Anyway, see, I needed a green one. That's what I got those out for. And this one, his weren't too tight on, or hers, whichever, weren't too tight on that little leg, but, you know, once you've already started into it, probably ought to do them all at once. You could do them just as each individual chick is outgrowing it, but depends on how much you want to handle them and keep track of things and risk of maybe not getting back to it timely. I just felt like I would go ahead and do all of them at once. Yeah, maybe there's a couple of them that could have waited a day or two, but then knowing my hectic schedule, I was afraid I would overlook it, and then I would have it tight on somebody's leg. And like we said, we don't want that because we don't want to be messing up their skin on their tender little legs, and we don't want to be messing up the circulation. So just do it all at once. Get this little guy, and see the yeah, like I said, you're the fussy guy. You're the fussy guy. Or gal, whatever. I do believe you're a gal, but I don't get too politically correct about the terms guy or gal. Don't worry about it too much. What I was saying about these little nippers, you can kind of slide right in with them, whereas anything else you'd be trying to cut across it, and it might not be as comfortable on that little leg. Certainly don't want to be twisting on that little leg while you're trying to work with it. Just like working with a little child, the bones are still forming, the bones are still setting up. Now they're very soft, bones are very soft that first day or so working with little chicks, so, you know, definitely got to be careful there. And I think I got that a little more snug than I would like, and so I'm just going to waste a zip tie rather than try to fight it back off of there. Oh, well, helps if you clip the right side of it. There we go. Okay. Because trying to work around, fight around, and get it back off of there, that's where you could get into some of that twisting on a little leg that might not be good. They tell me that guinea leg bones are more fragile than chicken leg bones. Well, that would also be a concern, is, you know, what's your species. Well, I think I still kind of snugged that up too much. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just wasting zip ties. But here's the thing. As I said earlier, zip ties are cheap, and they're definitely cheap compared to injuring a bird. And yeah, we are just talking a chicken, so it's not like a huge expensive piece of livestock, but it is still, you know, livestock, or depending on the person, it might be a pet. So you don't want to cause injury. Okay, I'm going to be more careful as I zip it shut this time. Easy, baby. Okay, so I've got it up there where it's just kind of, there we go. That's better. That's better. I would rather waste 2 or 3 zip ties than cause an injury by having it get too tight before everybody else is outgrowing theirs. So, there we have it. Okay, I'm going to pause this for a moment, put him back. These are all of the chicks that we hatched, have now been done, including some that I didn't actually show you, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, these are all 7 that we'd hatched out. So I'm going to show you some different styles of leg bands now. You going to talk to us? Be a little bossy? Okay. Okay, so here's a variety of leg bands. Now, these are not actually leg bands, but what I did when we were hatching, and so you've got a mess of chicks running around in the incubator and you're trying to keep straight. You know, this one hatched out this morning and it's from, you know, thus and such hen. I started color coding them right then. And of course it was all the same flock, so to speak. It was all the same hatch that I was working with. These are bands, rubber bands like the kids make the friendship bracelets out of. They're a little bit bigger and a little bit more give to them than the tiny little ones that they put in little girls' hair, you know, and then they have to snip them out with, you know, like toenail clippers or something. They're a little bit easier to work with than that, and so I looped it twice around the little chick's leg, and then by the time they were outgrowing them, you know, we had them well and truly out of the incubator. They were in the brooder, and you know, we could start moving on up to these zip ties for color, but you know, had a wide variety of colors, so you know, we could just, you know, band chick number 1 with red and chick number 2 with this orangish yellow and chick number 3 with, there's a fluorescent yellow in there somewhere, and so on, and just write it down, you know. And we had our eggs marked so we knew what came from which hens, which ones, there's certain ones that were wanting to build the flock in that direction, the Buckeyes primarily, but we also have a very, very good, so far as good with the hens, good at taking care of his flock, Barred Rock rooster. Now he's not very nice to me, so one of these chicks that are from that Barred Rock, if we turn out to have a rooster there, he may get himself replaced. He may get culled, because if we're having guests and visitors around here, and you know, some of the time small children and the chickens are out free ranging, we cannot, absolutely cannot tolerate a rooster attacking anybody. And he's attacked me one too many times, and so he is currently kenneled off by himself. He's on his way to getting culled. So we wanted to be sure to keep track of which chicks came from him, because, you know, we're hoping that if there is a rooster amongst those and we choose to keep it, you know, hand raising it, that, you know, hopefully it will turn out to be nicer to people and still have that genetic predisposition to take good care of his flock. So definitely want to know which chicks came from him and which chicks came from our Buckeye rooster and which hens, because some of our hens are those hybrids that, you know, you're not really going to worry about keeping chicks long term out of. If they turn out to be good egg layers, great, but you're probably not going to, you know, breed back to them time and again. So definitely wanted to know who was what. Now these are, actually I'm going to turn this camera around and then I'm going to start showing you some of these more particularly. But those are what I started out with, and then like I said, I've moved up to these. So I'll get that over there where you can see it. Here's why I wanted to turn the turn the camera around so that I could have free hands and know I was getting in front of the screen. These are what I used to have. These are what I used to be able to find. And you can find them in, or could at that time, find them in a variety of sizes. Let's see if I can get it to where that will show up well on the camera. I don't know. But I've got 3 different sizes there. Although the white and the green, it's a little hard to tell, but got 3 different sizes there. I think these little orange ones are maybe even a skosh smaller than the black one. Hopefully those are showing decently. Yeah. But they were split ring, so they're going to have some give to them on the chicken's leg, and maybe not pinch it as hard. How durable are they? I don't know. These are pretty old, so they might be pretty brittle. But how flexible were they to begin with, and how durable, I don't know. But I have always liked those, and that's what I've looked for. Have not been able to find them in recent years. So what I did find, and this is, and this is not a paid promotion, Easy Leg, Happy Hen Easy Leg. These are medium-sized ones, and these would not fit either of my roosters, I don't believe, but then my roosters didn't particularly need banded. When I got the barred rocks, there was one that was definitely an attack rooster, and so she had zip-tied him for me. Well, I didn't think too much about it at the time, so here I've come full circle and I'm zip-tying. But my hens have all been in a size range that I could use these medium-sized leg bands. Now, they do also make smalls, and that's what's on these 3 kids up here. Say hello there, little buckeyes. Yeah, they've got those on them. They will outgrow those by the time that they are full adult, and will need to be into something this size. Now, we may choose to just go with zip ties by then, but what you do here is you slide that together, and for the hens that I got from Connie and Daryl, my first 12 hens, and for those guineas that I got at first, I found these to work really well. However, I don't know if it was just a bad batch or what, but I have had 2 or 3 of the new ones that have just popped off this most recent batch that I bought, and I don't know if I can get one to do it here. These are very definitely used and dirty ones. See how that popped? Now, you could kind of forgive that on one that's old and worn, but I have had 2 that have popped off just recently that were brand new ones I had put on. One on a guinea, maybe it was both on the guineas. So not a bad option, but maybe occasionally have some factory seconds or something. So that had real good success with them for a time, and now not so much. I don't know as I've had any of the small ones ever pop off at all. It says that you can write on them. I do not know how well, how durable that is. I have not really found plastic, writing on plastic, even with a Sharpie, to be a very permanent thing. But if you're just trying to sort out and maybe cull or maybe separate a set of birds, you could make markings on those for the time being. So there's that. Then these are just kind of for curiosity's sake. This I found somewhere along the line. One of our cats found a a pigeon, killed a pigeon. And unfortunate as it was, it was banded. It was somebody's racing pigeon, apparently. When I got looking into this marking, it is a Vita King AU 2023, and then it has a 4-digit number on the other side that would come down to the specific bird and owner and so forth. But they put these on racing pigeons. What they tell me, or what I read, and I don't know how accurate this is, what I read is that they really don't, they're not that expensive, they're not that attached to their birds, and so, if they lose them, they just kind of don't care and move on. And I'm thinking, well, that might be some bunny hugger's opinion, and it might be that the person cares very much that they lost their bird. I read an article, or listened to, I guess I was listening to a video yesterday about some horses that had been rescued, and they were rescued from a kill pen, so I can respect that. But the attitude was that, these horses had served as draft horses for years, and then they had just been cast aside when they were no longer useful, and nobody cared. Well, having been forced by circumstances to part with certain individual animals, certain individual livestock at certain points in my life, and not have really any control over what happened to them in the future, I kind of took offense to that, because they did not give any justification, like, we tried to find the previous owners, and when we found them, they just didn't care. It wasn't that. It was just, they're making this statement, these horses were in a kill pen, so it must be that nobody cared. I'm thinking of one particular piece of livestock. It wasn't a horse, but one particular piece of livestock that we had hand-raised and loved, and we ended up in some tough financial circumstances. I knew that it would turn around eventually, but I knew right then I could not keep animals fed and keep my son fed and take care of my responsibilities. So I sold a few head of livestock back to the person that I had bought them from. And on the one particular that we had hand raised, I said, okay, this one we really, really want to buy back from you at some point in time. If you raise young off of it, do whatever with it that you want to, that's fine. But if it comes to a point where you're going to sell her, please, please, please call us. I didn't change phone number. I had voicemail. There was every opportunity that the individual could have contacted me. But when I went back a couple of years later and said, hey, how is this animal doing? And would you be interested in parting with this animal? I already sold it. That was out of my hands. It was not that the animal got sold because I didn't care once it was no longer useful to me. The animal got sold back to somebody that I thought I could trust to hold on to that animal, or at the very least let me know if there came a point where they couldn't hold on to it. That did not happen. So I try very hard not to be judgmental about what goes on with other people and their livestock. So this may very well have belonged to somebody who is still laying awake nights wondering what happened to that particular pigeon. I don't know. But I've not ever been able to actually track down who the owner was on that. But that is for a pigeon. There's a tiny little leg compared to a medium-sized chicken band. Another tiny little one. I used to raise doves, and so I bought these from the pet store. These do not have as elaborate of a marking system to them, but you can see how they're made in little segments. So you just snap one off, and it looks like I had used 2 out of that batch, and 4 out of, actually the 10 is gone off of there. So it looks like I had used 3 out of this batch and 4 out of this batch, because they have, read it or not, let me see if I can get the focus right. Anyway, they were numbered 1 through 10. So you could, if you're raising on a small scale, you could, you could band some of them gold, band some of them green. I don't know what other colors there were, but the way that this works is you would pry this open right here, just under that lip. There you can kind of see there's a channel there. So you would pry that open, and then once you put it on the leg, you would gently squeeze it back into its circular shape, and then with a pair of pliers you would bend this little tab down over the top of it, so there would always be that little tab sticking out on the side of it. But anyway, the different kinds of leg bands. When people do animal rehabbing, wildlife rehabbing, sometimes these days they put a chip in them. Obviously, I'm not going to chip my chickens. That'd be a little pricey. But there's always been a way to mark them so that you can tell the difference. Because if you go out in my chicken yard right now, you're going to see a lot of red chickens. So sometimes, and people have said, oh my gosh, how do you even consider butchering a chicken after you've named it? Well, okay, there's some of them that probably will live to old age with us. For the most part, they are livestock. I will treat them well. I will love them up. I will, be good to them. Naming them is a matter of practicality, because it's much easier to go, well, Gertrude over there, and we know that she has a particular set of bands on her, Gertrude, rather than, well, that red hen, the one with some black feathers in its wing. No, not that one. The other one with black feathers in its wing. So, okay, I've probably just aggravated some otherwise happy YouTube fans by letting it be known that I actually eat my chickens. But hey, if you go to McDonald's and buy a chicken sandwich, you are eating a chicken that was raised somewhere. So, I'm just not going to get all weirded out about it. I just know I'm going to treat them decently and take good care of them whilst they live. And, when it does come time to do that, then I will be as gentle about it as possible. In the meanwhile, knowing which ones are what, and being able to mark them so we can tell the difference is a good thing. And now I'm going to see what other things I can accomplish on this rainy day, and it is raining again. So, there's that. Actually, I guess I need to band the rest of these chickens, don't I? Because I still have the store-boughts that have not been rebanded. So, there'll be that. And they have a white band on their right leg, so that just, as everything grows. And they are golden comets, so they're, again, hybrids. Probably not going to raise any chicks off of them, and if I do raise chicks off of them, I'm certainly going to want to know those were the hybrid hens. That next generation or two, we may find that they don't lay real well. And if that's the case, then that's what it is. Probably won't ever breed that second generation or so, even if we did hatch an egg or two. Like the one that I commented earlier that we hatched that was weak and didn't make it, it was from one of my hybrid hens, one of those 5 production reds. And it might have been that she was young. It might have been that the egg took so long to hatch. It might have been a lot of things. But it had really badly curled feet, and it just was weak from the start. So just if I needed any encouragement to not hatch from the hybrids, there's that. So we'll just see going forward what we do with those. But we'll concentrate on the Buckeyes and possibly on some of the barred rocks. Now you could say that crossing the barred rock with the Astrolorp, crossing the barred rock with my old red hens, that might become a hybrid situation. So on those, we'll have to watch and see how well they produce and see what we think about that. So those are just stray thoughts. There you have it. Now I'm going to get back to banding chicks. So I thought, well, if I'm going to reband these ones, I ought to show off these pretty little girls. They are hybrids. They are golden comets. Some of them have a lot more red than this one. I'll get another one out. And they're going to be the standard reddish hen. You get a lot of hybrids out there. Isa Browns I've had before and will not have again because they don't seem to feather back in. They don't seem to be healthy. They don't seem to put weight back on. Once they get down, they just, in my experience, they don't seem to ever really recover well. Now, the things that I've read about the Golden Comets, they strike me as being a bit more healthy, a little bit longer productivity, and just a healthier bird. You can breed so intensely for certain characteristics. Well, that was a big mouth. You can breed so intensely for certain characteristics that you really damage the critter that you're working with. I used to do the kennel work for a fellow. I mean, he kenneled dogs on a regular basis, and I would literally go out and take care of the dogs in the kennel. So he was managing, but I was doing the working with the dogs. At any rate, we had a beautiful, beautiful Irish setter that was brought in there. But there is within certain Irish setter strains these days. Well, hello. Wants to go back to the coop. Hold that thought. Just go ahead rebanding while we talk here. So there was this beautiful Irish setter, and yet it had seizures. Had to be on medication for seizures, just like a person that would have seizures. But there is a strain within the Irish setters where they have bred so intensely for certain traits that this tendency towards seizures is genetically quite common. So, then you look at German Shepherds, and you find that they have, somewhere along the line, they have decided that they should have a certain angle to their back, and it just really messes with their whole skeleton, to where they are not as healthy. They have back and hip problems that was never present in the breed before. So when you get, and Arabian horses, they have bred so intensely for that dished face that they've actually almost made a caricature out of what the Arabian horse's head used to be. It used to be this fine, dainty, beautiful head, but looked like a normal horse. Now some of them you look at are just literally, they look deformed. So you have to be careful how intensely you breed for certain traits. And so some of these chicken hybrids, I think, may have gotten to that extreme. Now, of course, hybrid is crossbreeding something rather than breeding back within a specific breed designation. But there's a lot of things that people get carried away with. And if we're going to be responsible, if we're going to have dominion over these critters and be responsible for them, we really have to make rational, reasonable choices, not just, oh, I think this would be cute. There's a lot of designer breeds out there in the dog world that they've crossed this with that, and they've basically come up with a mutt that's kind of worthless. There's some that they've come up with that are pretty cool, and then there's some that they've come up with that are just a mess. It always kind of drives me nuts when they want to crossbreed working dogs, two working dogs that the mindset is entirely different. Healers work from the back end of the cattle, and many other of your herding dogs work from the front end, whether it's cattle or sheep or whatever. And so it's just like, why do you want to cross those? So anyway, so these little golden comets, they are primarily an egg production bird, but they seem to have a bit longer lifespan than the ices. The production reds, I don't know, I couldn't find too awful much on them, but I think they're also going to be a little healthier than the Isa browns. So there again, she's got a lot of blonde in them wing feathers, a lot of white blonde in them wing feathers, but get up there and get that last one or two, and I think they're a little more on the red side, just to show off the prettiness. I guess a lot of the red that I was seeing is on the forward parts of the bird. We'll just have to see how they turn out as they grow. But anyway, there's another one of my little golden comets, and then there's one more. This one wants to fly. It flew over to the kennel right next to me and decided that it didn't like the grip that it was getting and boomeranged right back, so he's not happy. Not happy. So, anyway, I'm just going to continue with leg banding, and then, as I said, it's a rainy day. I may go in and try to do some mapping. We're wanting to get things kind of laid out here so that we can look at, we've got all these plans for this place, but we need to be on the same page with where we're doing what, so that if one of us is here and wants to work on something, then the other one doesn't go, well, I wasn't going to do it there. So we thought if we had a map, that would be good for being able to visually plan things, and also go over some of our lists of projects we have planned, things that we could work on a little bit here and there. It would help us to be a little more focused if we had those lists where both of us knew where to find them. So, rainy day project, make use of the time, and again, I think I zipped one too snug. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to quit rambling and babbling here, and y'all have yourself a blessed day, doing whatever you're doing on this rainy day while we're just doing inside work here at Azelda's Legacy. Bye-bye and God bless. Well, this will be my standard PS shot, because it seems like
I'll just finish up. I'll say bye-bye and God bless, and then I'll think of one other little thought to add on. So now for the 2-minute PS on this one, or on some places I might use it. It may be more or less than 2 minutes. So goodbye, God bless, good night.
So a couple of thoughts. This is that last girl, and she does have some more red sprinkled around over her. And then, just for contrast, this is Blondie. She is the Buckeye out of this batch. And so you see she's going to be quite a bit darker. Yeah, I know we named her Blondie, but she was very blonde as a little one. Anyway, so there's that. The Golden Comets, or some breeders will call them Cinnamon Queens or whatever, they're going to be a lot lighter colored than my good old Buckeyes that I'm aiming for predominantly. Hop off there. Okay, so, and then the other thought, as we were talking about banding, again, this is not a paid promotion, 600-piece cable tie set. Picked them up at my local farm supply store. You can, call it Tractor Supply, Baumgars. Can't call it Orscheln's anymore because they went away. I know there's some others I can't think of. Anyway, you can get them at auto shops or hardware stores or whatever. Might be a little higher at automotive shops to get all the colors, and you can order them on Amazon. But this, I think, was $12 to $15, which would make them 2 to 2.25 cents a piece. Even if they were $20, that's like 3 1/3 cents per cable tie, so, or zip tie, whatever you want to call them. So, like I said, not bad for, for what you need. So, there's that.